Hey there, it's Teresa here this Wednesday back with another edition or conversation, making the connection between money and God and us, and specifically using the two creation stories in the book of Genesis in the Bible as kind of a talking point, as a springboard for re-looking at our understanding of God, our understanding of ourselves, our understanding of money, the themes of abundance and scarcity. So as you hop on, please do say a shout out. Let me know that you're here. And if you're catching this via replay, I just really want to thank you for taking the time to come back. This morning, I've just had some stuff coming in around the theme that I was given for today's episode about part of something bigger than us. And right before we went live, I just started to jot some things down that were coming to me. So some of them are really fresh and I'm still processing them. So just understand that this is literally hot and off the press here. So a couple of months ago, I did something that it took 23 years for me to get. And that was a definition of abundance that is unique, I think, to me and to the work that I'm here to do. For 20 plus years, I kind of bought into the definition of abundance that's common in our culture. It's about money, it's about material possessions, it's about quantity. I spent a lot of time trying to do the abundance work that I saw other speakers and coaches doing. Have you make more money and, get out of debt. And I do some of those things, but I was trying to be someone other than I was. I was trying to be like someone else. And in truth, half the time I was doing that, and that's not true. 90% of the time that I was doing that from a place of scarcity, my own, thinking that I wasn't enough. So I have to be like somebody else. And I think I have to be like somebody else to make the money I need. That's been shifting a lot these past 3 years, a lot. And it's opened up so many new things and a heck of a lot more abundance, financial and otherwise. And so a couple months ago, I was working with my coach. My coaches said that if there's ever a term that you use in your work that's key to your work, you need to define it. Like, what does that mean? And abundance is one of those ones that I'd been really wishy-washy around. So with the support of my coach, we went into quiet, sacred space to see what came to me. Hey, Carol, good morning. Glad you could join us. What is my definition of abundance? Like, not mine as in I own it, but the definition that I'm to bring to the world and to offer you. And it came in very clearly. Abundance is knowing that you are part of something bigger than you and that you have access to all that you need. Now, I've sat with that these past couple of months, and I've tried to poke holes in it, truthfully. I haven't been able to. If anything, that simple definition has revealed more and more depth and more truth to it. I use it because it's the starting point of this conversation today. Knowing that we're part of something bigger than us can give us a sense of power, possibility, security, ease, that we cannot access when we think it's all up to us. It's all up to us. I got to make this happen. I got to make this income. I got to make this business go. I got to get us out of debt. I got to. That's all ego in the truest meaning of the word ego. And I'm not making ego bad, but ego is part of our human development that starts to have us be separate. We're a separate being. We're not one with our mom anymore. We're separate. But now let's go back to the original creation story. I see Carol's joined us. If another person has hopped on, please just greet me, type in and say, hey, so I know who I'm talking with here. In the Genesis creation stories, and specifically number 1 in chapter 1, the first original creation story that begins literally in the beginning. I pulled it up on my phone. It's the story, you're maybe familiar with it, of how God created the world in 6 days. And then he rested on the 7th day. And just looking at it, it's like in the beginning, there was nothing. There was this formless void, no shape, and darkness covered everything. And then God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God called it good. And then there was light and there was darkness. He called the light day and he called the night, the darkness night. And he said it was good. And then there was, God created the heavens and the waters and separated the water from the dry land. And he called the heavens, the dome sky, and he called the land earth and the sea, and it was good. And God said, let's plant trees. So there was this creation of things, especially in the beginning, that were opposites. Like there's night and day, there's earth and land, there's sky and sea, there's earth and land, that's the same thing, earth and sea. These opposites, like God separated things. This is just coming in to create something new, light and dark. But yet what God separated, he always called good. And in that creation story, everything, the universe is created with birds and fish and trees and vegetation, a whole environment, a whole ecosystem before we were created, human beings. We weren't created because the earth needed us. We were created because God wanted us. And reflecting on that, it reminds me of a quote from Harrison Ford. Good morning, Susan. Glad you could join. I once heard Harrison Ford, who's an advocate for protecting our environment, protecting this home, this world that we live in that God created. And he said something that just stuck with me ever since. He said, you know what? The earth doesn't need us to continue to keep existing. The earth and birds and trees and plants and the mountains and the rivers and the tides and the stars and the sun, they don't need us to continue going on. But we need them. Both his quote and this Genesis first creation story has us be part of creation, but shows our place in creation. Creation didn't need us. And yet God wanted us to be part of that creation. I don't know about you, but that has me start to think, well, maybe that's the pattern. And maybe I'm not as important as I think I am. And maybe I really don't have to make things happen. And maybe things don't depend on me as much as I need. And that can open me up to relax and trust and to recognize, like, hey, maybe I screw up today. Maybe I'm in debt. Maybe I'm whatever. But it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of creation. And it's not everything. Like, it isn't going to have life creation stop. It's like a blip on our journey. It's something for us to deal with, but it's not up to us. We can tap into a bigger power that created us and created everything else. And Like I said, this is just coming in kind of fresh this morning. So, Susan, Karen, those of you watching, just kind of type in, let me know if this is clear to you, if it's kind of like opening up or shifting some things for you. While you're doing that, so then where, the other thing about the creation story, especially in Genesis, it paints this picture of abundance, of this vast creation of fruits and flowers and trees. And as we know, there's not just one kind of tree and one kind of flower and one kind of bird and one kind of animal. It's a picture of abundance. That's what we were created as part of, to take our place in, to participate in, to enjoy, and in truth, to add to. Now, what brings in all the fear and scarcity? Because, the past couple of days, I have to be honest, I've had some major scarcity attacks where I've been afraid and thinking I have to push and I've got to make things happen and it's all up to me, just going right back into that. So this is really hitting home for me. And this is where the story in Genesis 3, after Adam and Eve were created, of the fall, of the eating the fruit of the tree that God told them not to eat of. This is where I think it comes in. And again, this is just coming in fresh for me this morning. You see, the tree that God asked Adam and Eve not to eat was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And the serpent tempted Eve, and then she tempted Adam with eating this fruit, saying, God doesn't want you to eat it because then you're going to be like God. So I'm going to eat the fruit. But the knowledge of good and evil is really judgment. Suddenly, judgment, dualistic judgment came in, which is what our ego does. We see things as good or bad, as right or wrong, as it should or it shouldn't be happening. We separate things differently than God does. We separate them bad, and I don't want that, and I'm going to resist that, and I'm going to be afraid of that, and I'm going to avoid that. And good, that's what I want, and I want more of that. And I'm going to hold on to that, and I'm going to try and keep that. And there's where fear comes in. Because suddenly, if I'm wanting to hold on to this, then I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. And when I'm holding on to something, I'm not open anymore. And the tension comes in. And if I'm labeling this as bad and wrong, and I shouldn't do that or be like that or have that, well, now I'm creating resistance and there's fear and I'm blocking it. I'm trying to push it away. And that's a block. And that's what creates scarcity, because we start to see ourselves as separate from the things that we want. I see you're commenting, so I'll respond to those in just a second. As I was talking right here in this live stream, that's not how God separated. God separated things. There was night and there was day, and there was the sky and there was land, and there was sea and there was land, but not with judgment. It was still all good. It was just different. It was just a different experience. Night and day. Air and land, water and land, just a different experience. But that's not how we separate things. And that's not how we separate ourselves from being part of this something bigger than us, more powerful than us, that sees it all while different, while maybe even opposites, sees it all as good. And that's true for you and me. How often we divide even ourselves. I don't like that part about me, and I like that part, and I don't like this happening in my life. And that's what creates fear. And we go into fix it and solving and proving and pushing and got to change things and try and control things. And just so you know, I'm describing myself here right now. Let me know if you can relate. But God doesn't think that way. It's always an and it's always good. When we go into judgment, we think we know what's right and what's best. Then we are thinking that we're like God, and we forget our place in creation. You know, I was sitting out on my front porch this morning early for my quiet time in prayer, and like I said, I've been having some scarcity attacks. And when I first sat out there and was trying to get still, I got that I was wound in my body like tighter than than a spring, and energetically I was. So I just began to breathe and just like trying to open up and say, okay, and God, the message was just relax, relax, relax. I've got you. I've got you. And as I did that, I began to like look around at this huge tree in our front yard and the grass and the hummingbird that was feeding at my feeder and the sandhill cranes are here bugling in the distance and the cows in the field across the street and the little chipmunk that ran across and the little garter snake that went across. And I just in that moment, again, with this definition of abundance that we are part of something bigger. It was like, wow, there's an energy force, a life force that we call God that brought all of this into existence, that has grass continue to grow and it needs to be mowed, that has baby chipmunks be born, that has hummingbirds, those little tiny creatures fly around and know where nectar is. It has sandhill cranes that have existed since just past the dinosaurs. This life force that we call God was this that created all of this and continues to create it again and again and have life force flowing through it. I'm part of it. I'm the same life force that created these trees and water and the sky and the sun and all of that created me to be part of it. Suddenly it was like, wow, how arrogant of me to think that it's up to me, to think that I've got to make it happen, to think that all of my hard work and pushing and struggling somehow is what's needed to have my life turn out okay, to change the planet, to make things better. Instead of opening up to the source of it all, including me, including the very breath and oxygen I breathe, and letting the same life force and energy that creates and sustains all of creation and me work through me in addressing challenges that I'm facing, growth, areas of growth for me, money and finances, providing all that I need. Like, I don't have to make it happen. I am not the source of any of it. I'm the recipient of much of it. I'm invited to participate in all that the creator, the source, wants to create in this world, in my life, for me and through me. But I'm not the source, and it's not up to me. And so much of what I think is a problem or a challenge, because I bring that judgment of good and bad to it, my invitation is to let myself experience it, open to it, and dare to call it good too, knowing that the source who created all can work through even what I might think is bad or wrong. If I only let go, stop separating myself, stop judging, try a little bit of humility instead of thinking I know what's best, and take my proper place in this amazing, wonderful, abundant creation in this life. I was created by a source of abundance in the midst of abundance to experience abundance. Sounds pretty cool to me. And I don't know about you, but then I can relax and just do what there is for me to do as I'm guided to have what it is that I want and need, not to make it happen, not to have it up to me, but to cooperate with what God is wanting to do for and with and through me here in my life and in this world. That's what I invite you to practice doing too. And if you ever don't know how to do that, I invite you to go back to your breath, just like I did this morning when I started to realize I am wound tighter than a spring, and I began to breathe. Because we're hardwired for that flow, which is opening to receive the gift of oxygen and life, which you and I did not create. Absorbing it, letting it give us life, and then active surrender and trust. Letting it go, letting it move through us, and it gives life to the plants and everything around us. Trusting that that oxygen that gives us life will be there in the next moment. That's a great way to remember. It's really not about us. It's not up to us. And we don't have to earn it or deserve it. But we do get to participate in all the forms of life, all the resources that the Creator wants us to have to give us life. Enjoy them, use them, and then be willing to let them go again, because we're part of something bigger. We don't have to hold on, and we don't have to be afraid. We open to receive, we open to release. So thanks for being here. Let me quick read your comments. Love to hear any comments of this last little part, because a lot of this was not planned. I'm just speaking it straight. My mouse isn't scrolling down here, so let me see if I can get down and see your comments here. Come on, computer. There we go. Susan, I can identify with ego, thinking where I think I've accomplished something as a result of hard work, meaning it's of my own doing. I hear you, Susan. The paradigm shift of believing otherwise. Yeah, huge shift can be empowering. And it doesn't make us not important. We are part of the creation. We are here on purpose with a purpose. We're not the center of creation, and we're not the source of it. We just participate in and have a part to play. Carol, comments from you, Susan. I know we're at about our time, but I also know there's a delay. Those of you catching the replay, feel free to add your comments. I come back and check and respond to them. So let me know your final thoughts. I'm going to drink some water here, allow for the delay. What's one thing from what I shared today that's a takeaway from you for you that's going to stick, and you're going to kind of let process and gel with you? Carol and Susan, while I take a moment to drink, I invite you to just type in just briefly, what's one takeaway for you? And I will wait here. Just so you know, I'll be back next Wednesday, same time, same place. Just continuing to work with these two creation stories and how they connect to us, God, money, the material world, this life we're living. Susan, Carol, any comments? I know there's a delay. I don't want to hold you too long. So I'm going to begin to wrap up and say thank you for being here. If your comment shows up after we close, then know that I will respond to it later. Thank you for being here. If there's anyone that you think this might speak to, maybe they're in that make it happen, thinking it's up to them, wound tighter than a spring place of scarcity, would love it if you share it with them. Maybe it will give them something that can help them relax and trust that they are part of something bigger than they are, something more powerful, creative, loving, generous, abundant, and that they have access to all that they need in any given moment. Thanks for being here. Blessings on your day. Bye, everybody. Oops. How to end this recording.